Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Podcast. Today, we're tackling something everyone experiences at some point: loneliness. Not the obvious kind of being physically alone, but the subtle, invisible kind. You could be in a room full of people, chatting, laughing, yet feel completely disconnected inside.
Yes, that's often the hardest to understand. Because when you're surrounded by others and still feel alone, it can make you question yourself. Why am I feeling this way? What's wrong with me?
Exactly. And that inner dialogue can be exhausting. You start overanalyzing, comparing yourself to others, wondering why connection feels out of reach even when it's right in front of you.
Loneliness isn't a personal flaw, it's a signal, a call from your mind and heart saying, I need deeper connection, more authenticity, more emotional presence. It's part of being human, especially in a world where surface level interaction is normalized.
Today, we'll explore why loneliness happens even when you're not alone, and how to reconnect with yourself and with others in ways that actually matter.
Listeners, before we start, if this resonates, like, subscribe, leave a comment about a time you felt lonely, or share this episode.
Think of this as a journey. Step by step, we'll unpack loneliness, understand it, and explore actionable ways to transform that empty feeling into awareness and connection. Michael, let's start with the basics. How do you define loneliness in a way that people can really relate to?
Loneliness is the gap between the connection we have and the connection we need. It's not about being physically alone, it's about feeling seen, understood, and emotionally safe. Presence alone isn't enough.
That's powerful. People often don't realize that being in a crowded room or having hundreds of online friends doesn't mean they're connected. I've noticed it myself. You can be laughing with friends, texting all day, and yet feel an emptiness that's hard to shake. That contrast between what's happening outside and how you feel inside, that's the real loneliness.
Absolutely. Depth matters more than quantity. Even constant interaction can leave you feeling invisible if it lacks authenticity.
That explains why someone might say, I don't get it, I'm never alone, yet I feel empty.
Loneliness is about emotional connection, not social presence.
There's a social stigma, too. People feel ashamed to admit they're lonely, as if it's a personal failure.
Right, but it's a signal, not a flaw. It's your brain and heart saying you need more meaningful engagement, just like hunger signals your body to eat.
Modern life seems to amplify it. Endless scrolling, messages, notifications, all interaction, but very little emotional fulfillment. It's like a constant buzz that keeps you busy but doesn't feed your soul.
That's why many people feel emotionally undernourished while being socially active.
Gotcha. You can have friends, family, and coworkers around, yet feel profoundly lonely.
Yes, presence doesn't equal connection.
And loneliness hits harder in quiet moments, late at night, during commutes, or when the distractions fade. It's like the mind finally turns inward and says, wait, I don't feel connected.
Silence doesn't create loneliness, it reveals it. Unmet and
Lila, let's dive deeper. Why do people feel lonely, even in social settings? Surrounded by friends, family, coworkers, yet that emptiness lingers.
It is usually because the connections are surface level. Conversations skim the surface, interactions are often distracted or rushed. Emotional depth is missing, so your brain notices the gap between what you have and what you need.
That makes sense. It's like being at a party. Everyone's chatting, laughing, posting selfies, and you realize no one actually sees or hears what you're feeling. That disconnect can feel heavier than being truly alone.
Loneliness is more about the quality of attention than quantity of company.
I've noticed this in workplaces too. Even in teams, people can feel isolated if interactions are shallow or transactional.
You can be surrounded by colleagues but still feel unseen if there's no real engagement.
I think social media intensifies this. Endless connections online can give the illusion of belonging, but it doesn't satisfy emotional needs. You scroll, like, comment, yet still feel a void.
Absolutely. The brain equates likes with attention, but it's not the same as meaningful, empathetic interaction.
So, in a sense, modern connectedness is often just a superficial distraction from true emotional presence.
Right. It keeps us busy, but not fulfilled.
Why do people sometimes feel lonely around their closest relationships, like with partners or family?
Because emotional absence can exist even with people physically present. Misunderstandings, lack of listening, or failure to empathize can create a sense of isolation within intimacy.
It's ironic, isn't it? Those we're supposed to feel safest with can sometimes trigger the deepest sense of loneliness. And I imagine that's why some people retreat to hobbies or work as a way to cope with that invisible void.
Hobbies, work, or even screen time can temporarily distract from loneliness, but they don't replace true emotional connection.
Is there a difference between being lonely and feeling left out?
Definitely. Loneliness is internal, a mismatch between your emotional needs and your current connections. Feeling left out is situational, temporary, and often external.
You're saying someone could feel lonely even if they're included in every event, every group chat?
Yes, inclusion doesn't guarantee connection.
Because why do some people feel lonely even in long-term friendships or marriages?
Because over time, relationships can drift toward routine, emotional engagement fades, and communication may become predictable rather than meaningful.
That explains why people sometimes describe living together but feeling worlds apart.
Physical presence doesn't equal emotional intimacy.
Finally, what can listeners notice in themselves when loneliness is creeping in, even when they seem surrounded?
Pay attention to your emotional response, not your surroundings. Feeling disconnected, restless, or invisible in company is a signal. It's an invitation to seek deeper, more authentic connections, not to blame yourself.
The key takeaway here is loneliness is about depth, not presence. It's about being truly seen and understood, not just existing among others.
Recognizing that is the first step to meaningful change.
Lila, now that we've unpacked what loneliness is and why it hits even in company, let's talk solutions. How can someone start to cope when they feel this emptiness?
The first step is acknowledgement. Admit to yourself that you feel lonely, without judgment or shame. Many people try to distract themselves immediately, but that only suppresses the signal. Sit with the feeling for a moment, observe it, and try to understand what part of your emotional needs isn't being met. Sometimes simply naming it, I feel unseen, or I need connection, gives you clarity and starts the healing process.
That's interesting. So instead of running from loneliness, we can treat it almost like a message or a guide.
Exactly. Think of it as a compass pointing you toward what matters. Loneliness often signals a need for deeper relationships, more authentic conversations, or even self-reflection. Ignoring it is like ignoring your body when it's thirsty. You can survive temporarily, but eventually it catches up.
I like that image. It reminds me of times I was surrounded by friends, yet felt empty, and I realized I wasn't actually talking about what mattered to me.
That's a common experience. Our minds can be socially present but emotionally absent. Real connection requires vulnerability and presence, not just physical proximity.
Please give our listeners some practical ways to reconnect with others when loneliness hits.
Start small. Reach out to someone you trust, a friend, family member, or mentor, and share honestly how you feel. Even brief conversations with meaningful content are more nourishing than hours of shallow interaction. You can also engage in shared activities, volunteering, clubs, or hobbies where authentic connections are more likely to form naturally.
Interesting. So it's about depth, not frequency.
Yes, depth always wins over frequency. Quality interactions can transform your emotional state far more than constant surface-level engagement.
What about reconnecting with yourself? Can that help alleviate loneliness?
Emotional self-connection is crucial. Practices like journaling, reflecting on your values, and pursuing hobbies that resonate with your passions can make you feel grounded and emotionally fulfilled. When you're connected to yourself, you're better equipped to form meaningful connections with others.
Huh. Even solo activities can actually reduce loneliness if they align with your inner values?
100%. Being alone doesn't have to mean being lonely. When you're emotionally aligned with yourself, solitude becomes nourishing instead of empty.
Sometimes people feel lonely because they're comparing themselves to others. How do you tackle that?
Stop measuring your connection by what you see on social media or in other people's lives. Those portrayals are curated, not real. Instead, focus on your authentic experiences and the quality of your interactions. Recognize and celebrate the connections you do have, however small or subtle. Gratitude can shift your perspective dramatically.
I've noticed that works. When I journal about one meaningful conversation, I feel more connected than after a day of endless texting.
Meaningful connection is felt, not counted.
Are there long-term strategies to prevent this kind of emotional loneliness from recurring?
Yes, build a connection plan. Regularly check in with your important relationships. Schedule time for conversations that matter. Invest in friendships and communities that value depth over convenience. And continue reflecting on your own emotional state. Knowing what nourishes you prevents loneliness from sneaking in unnoticed.
So prevention is more than just staying busy, it's intentionally cultivating depth in life.
Exactly. Busyness alone can mask loneliness, but intentional depth addresses it.
And for listeners, what's one simple exercise to start today?
Reach out to one person just for a conversation that matters, no small talk. Share something meaningful, ask about their feelings, and truly listen. That single interaction can shift your emotional state and remind you that connection is possible, even in a world that feels disconnected.
That feels doable. Small steps, meaningful focus, not a massive overhaul.
Exactly. And listeners, if you found this helpful, subscribe, leave a comment about a connection you'll deepen today, or share this episode. Engaging helps not just you, but the entire community.
Remember, loneliness is natural, but it doesn't have to define you. Each small act of connection, with yourself or others, is a step toward feeling seen, heard, and emotionally nourished. Lila, we've explored what loneliness is, why it hits even when we're surrounded, and some immediate ways to cope. But let's talk long-term strategies. How can someone build a life where loneliness doesn't creep in as often?
The foundation is intentional connection. Start by mapping your relationships. Identify the people who truly understand and support you. Then prioritize consistent, meaningful interactions with them, not just when you feel lonely, but as a lifestyle. Loneliness decreases when your connections are proactive, not reactive.
That's powerful. So it's not about having more friends, but nurturing the right connections. I've personally noticed that even a few relationships that feel deep and reciprocal can keep me grounded for weeks.
Indeed, a handful of deep connections outweigh dozens of shallow ones. Loneliness thrives in superficial interactions. Depth, empathy, and mutual understanding are the antidotes.
I remember a time when I kept scrolling social media late at night, feeling isolated. Then I called a friend and had a real conversation. It felt like a weight lifted instantly.
That's a perfect example. Active engagement beats passive consumption every time.
What about reconnecting with yourself in the long term?
Self-connection is essential. Spend time reflecting on your values, passions, and goals. Pursue hobbies that bring joy. Keep a journal or even explore creative outlets like music, art, or writing. These practices ground you emotionally and reduce the dependency on external validation for your sense of connection.
I love that. When I started dedicating an hour a day to writing, I realized I could feel fulfilled alone. And that made my friendships richer because I wasn't relying on them for all my emotional needs.
Emotional self-sufficiency doesn't mean isolation. It means you're equipped to connect more authentically with others.
Now, some people struggle because they constantly compare their connections to others. How do you address that?
Comparison is toxic for emotional well-being. Focus on your authentic relationships, not what appears perfect on social media. Appreciate small wins like a meaningful call, a deep conversation, or a moment when someone listens without judgment. These count more than any number of likes or followers.
So, quality over quantity again. I guess that's a recurring theme in all aspects of reducing loneliness.
Yes, depth, presence, and intentionality consistently outperform surface-level engagement.
How about building a community? Can that help prevent loneliness?
Absolutely. Join groups that align with your values or passions. It could be a book club, volunteering, a sport, or an online community that feels authentic. Community provides a sense of belonging, shared purpose, and validation, all of which reduce chronic loneliness.
I tried volunteering last year, and just 2 hours a week made a noticeable difference. I felt useful, appreciated, and connected.
Purpose-driven engagement connects you with others on a deeper level.
For people who are chronically lonely, what's a mindset shift that helps long term?
Shift from thinking of loneliness as a deficit to seeing it as a signal and opportunity. It tells you what needs attention: relationships, self-connection, or meaningful engagement. Responding to it thoughtfully rather than ignoring it transforms the experience.
I see. So loneliness isn't the enemy, it's a guidepost.
Exactly. Treat it as a compass, not a curse.
Are there daily habits that reinforce long-term connection?
Yes, a few examples: daily check-ins with close friends or family, even brief messages; mindful listening during conversations, fully present, no distractions; journaling thoughts and emotional states to stay connected with yourself; engaging in group activities regularly. Consistency in these habits reduces the frequency and intensity of loneliness over time.
I've noticed that after I started journaling nightly, I feel less anxious about being alone. It's like I'm talking to myself and really listening.
Yeah, internal dialogue is powerful. When you validate and connect with yourself, external connections become more meaningful.
Lila, for listeners who want one practical step today, what would you suggest?
Reach out to someone you care about, not for small talk, but for a real, honest conversation. Let them know you're thinking of them and ask how they truly are. Also, remember to subscribe, leave a comment about your own connection plan, and share this episode if it resonates. These small steps matter more than you think.
Loneliness is natural, yes, but it's also manageable. Every small act of authentic connection with yourself or others rewires your sense of belonging. The journey isn't instant, but consistent, intentional engagement transforms emptiness into fulfillment. Lila, after everything we've discussed, understanding loneliness, coping with it, building deep connections, and establishing long-term strategies, what's the single most important insight listeners should take away?
It's this: loneliness is a signal, not a failure. It's a guidepost showing what your heart and mind need. When we acknowledge it, reflect on it, and act intentionally, we transform isolation into meaningful connection.
I think that's something I've learned personally. Sometimes I feel lonely even in a room full of friends, and I realized it's not about being with people, it's about being seen, heard, and present. And the moment I take small steps, reach out, share honestly, engage authentically, the weight eases. It's incredible how small actions, a message, a call, a real conversation, can change your whole day emotionally.
Yes, micro connections add up, and intentionality matters more than volume.
For long-term reflection, I think it helps to journal or mentally review your day. Did I connect meaningfully with someone? Did I honor my own emotional needs? It's simple, but over time, these small habits reinforce a sense of belonging. And I suppose even recognizing your own feelings without judgment is a form of connection in itself.
Totally. Self-connection is the foundation of all other relationships.
Lila, for our listeners who are ready to take action today, what would you suggest as a concrete first step?
Reach out to one person you care about for an honest conversation. Share a meaningful thought or feeling. And while you're at it, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment sharing your experience, or share the episode with someone who might need it. Every small step matters.
Thank you, Lila. And to our listeners, remember, loneliness is part of the human experience, but it doesn't have to control you. Each authentic conversation, each moment of self-reflection, and every small connection builds a life where you feel seen, heard, and emotionally fulfilled. I want to personally thank you for listening today. Take one small action, message a friend, journal your feelings, or simply notice your emotional state and notice how it shifts your perspective.